Just because it reflects sort of like one and only business call the entire week. Of course, right? Yeah.
You can tell by how long it takes the thing to boot up when you turn it on, right? That operating system does everything. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's great.
At
work.
Yeah.
Kenwood 7100. It's the one that has the full remote head. So the guts under the bench. Oh, okay.
Yeah, 11 is 163 solar plus.
So I missed the last Elmer night. That's the night we made that tennis, right? Yeah. I missed that.
Came out pretty good.
Good.
150 now. Sunspot never dropped from 127.
So who led the build? Scott did it, or?
I got on Monday, and I think there were more stations on 10.
Yeah, we had fun.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, everyone sort of found out about it. It's like, oh, 10 meters, I've been on that for years.
It's on vacation. Couldn't make that one.
Yeah, my son is right now down
What a job. So is that for each employee, or?
I don't know. A whole bunch of machines now with all assisted recording.
Because one of the ones I was looking at them,
I know Worked a long time for Siemens.
Yeah. Only in the medical field, service as a backup. Another sales car.
So you were with the salespeople, you were the technical expert. That's what you guys do.
Yeah, that's what it is.
But it also only transfers.
Right?
Never know.
It's amazing how much differences there were between antennas.
Such a nice to meet.
I think the big nowadays actually dressed the torch tape. Going to the things and some have instead of nice email. The one thing
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was licensed in 6
1.8? Yeah, not bad. Not bad.
It's become my new prize. Well, you know, I'm tired of it.
Have to.
Some had the minus, that's all.
Okay. Let's figure it out. Let's get going.
It was a good project.
Oh, up there. All right, good evening, everybody. We'll get the meeting started. So as you hopefully know, I'm Scott, aka 6Q, one of your board members, director at large. I'll facilitate tonight and kind of run through here. We've got a little different format we're gonna do tonight to keep some of the business at the end of the meeting to deal with some YouTube issues. So in any event, we'll jump right in. Welcome, glad to see everybody here. Carved out some time on their busy Tuesday night schedule. For new members, do we have any new members in? All right, and your name is?
Yeah.
And your call sign?
Kilo Bravo Zero, Papa Victor Bravo.
Okay, and what part of this area do you live in?
Denver.
Denver. Okay, thanks for coming down. Thanks for coming down. Any others? Cool. Any guests here tonight? I don't see any guests. No. All right. Leadership introductions. Well, as I said, I'm Scott, one of the board members at large. Dan, we'll go to you, our president. Dan.
So, good evening, everyone. Dan at 2SRK, Club Soccer Club President. So, I'm glad that you're here. Thanks for being here. I'll tell you what, we've had some great presentations over the last couple weeks. We had the antenna bill, which went awesome, which will be even cooler to put into use during the Fox Hunt this coming Saturday, but we'll get into that in a little bit. And then this presentation tonight on 3D printing, I'm glad you're sitting down if you follow. There's some really good stuff that Brad's going to present. So glad you're here. Welcome. We can't fix secrets around here, so if you got something on your mind or something you need help with, please let it be known so we can guide and mentor and steer you in the right direction. Again, thanks for here. Back
Cool.
in that.
Thanks, Dan. Paul.
Hey, Scott, good to see you. Want to welcome everybody tonight. Welcome to our guest and new member, and Dan took a little bit of my thunder, but we do have our Chili Social coming up this Saturday out at Stan's place. And if you guys have been out there, you know it's an old 1800s ranch, right, or farm. And the barn that he has is an event center now. It's been turned into an event center, and man, is it something to see. So we're going to have chili. We're going to have some stuff to go with the chili. We're going to have a swap fest. So bring stuff out to sell or bring some cash out to purchase some goodies. Last year, the swap fest was probably as good as any ham fest in the area, right?
Yeah.
And it's a lot of good stuff. And then after that's kind of all done, we're all full and ready for a nap or whatever. Then Randy's going to get us going on a fox hunt. So.
All that chili.
Yeah, so definitely come on out Saturday. You can bring the family, friends, whatever, guests. If you want to bring any sides, we have enough chili, but if you want to bring some cornbread or you want to bring a dessert or some drinks or whatever, we still can fill in a few of those holes. So feel free just to bring out whatever you guys would like to eat, bring it out. And so Stan has a new dog, and his old dog and his new dog. We don't want any pets out there. Although this new dog is the coolest dog.
A lot of energy.
Oh my goodness. We were out there working on his antenna yesterday, and this is the coolest dog I've ever seen. So you'll get to meet Baxter. And but please don't bring any pets of your own. That would be fantastic. Any questions about this coming Saturday? Does anybody have any questions? Scott?
What time?
9 until 4.
Okay.
But some of us are going to be out of there as early as 8. You can come out whenever you want. Our club trailer is going to be out there, and it's going to have the radios operating. If you want to jump in the trailer and get on HF or whatever. The trailer is technically not the club trailer. It's Randy's trailer, but he's put a lot of work into it. And if you want to come out and check that out, that would be fantastic as well. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What's the address?
I don't have it, but you can look it up in the FCC database or on QRZ.
Okay.
And his call sign is N0KKY. And if you go south on Highway 83, just a second, I'll let you give the address. Scott has the address, but if you go south on 83, past Franktown, past the state park, maybe another mile or so, you're going to take a right. And that road goes back into Castle Rock. He is about 2 miles or so down that road. As you come all the way down to the very bottom of the gully there, that's where the turn into his house will be. The address is on his mailbox, and the address is
4921 Lake Gulch Road.
okay. And we will have a talk-in frequency, Randy, of
I don't know, name one.
146.55. 146.55 VHF for talk-in. A couple people have missed the turn a few times, and just give us a call. We'll talk you in, and just follow the driveway all the way back to the barn. There'll be people there to help you park and get out and come enjoy the festivities. Please bring stuff to sell. If you've got extra stuff sitting around, Cameron's got some extra stuff. I don't know, maybe Jeff does, Peter. I know Peter's got some stuff probably.
No.
So, no, you don't have any.
What about dirt?
Your garage is full of stuff.
It stays that way.
Okay, so bring it out and price it and do some wheeling and dealing. Let's get some of the stuff moved. No other questions? We'll see everybody on Saturday, and that's also my special the portable ops report as well.
Okay. If you're bringing quite a bit of stuff to sell, if you have a table, bring it. We have a limited number of tables, some old plywood and some sawhorses, so we should be okay, but just in case you bring a lot, throw a table in. Cool. Thanks, Paul. Let's go to Randy.
We have 3 tables.
Okay.
I think table-wise, we're going to probably
Be close. Okay.
yeah. What am I talking
Your position.
about? Oh, Director at Large.
All right. There we go. We'll do Robert.
Dan Robert, 80CA, the treasurer.
And Jeff.
I'm Jeff, 80GQ, and I'm our CTO, and I'm excited about Saturday.
All right. Did I miss any? Nope. Brad.
84BA, board director, non-voting member, cat herder. And we're passing around. That's my wife, actually. We're passing around a photo that Scott and Randy made that we're going to include in the QSL cards for the special event that we already had for the B-17. So you'll see it. That's going in with the QSL. We've gotten 15 or 20 requests for cards, so we're going to send that out for the club.
Cool. Great. Thanks, Brad. Soapbox comments. We'll go to there. Any new licenses? Upgrades? Great contacts? New mode? Wow. All right. All right, Bill.
In case no one has noticed, 10 meters has been open.
Oh, yeah.
All day long.
All day long. You can hear some FM repeaters from out of state, like
New York, Texas are open.
Texas.
Great.
I
Yeah.
made, there was actually, I don't remember the name of the African country, there was a de-expedition out to one of the rare African countries.
Was that Nubia?
No.
I heard the Nubia something, I heard Nubia.
Okay, it was 3X something, I don't remember. But anyway, I was looking at, I've got a spectrum scope, and I was looking at, you know, the FT8 section of 10 meters, and then I noticed a couple of kilohertz up, there were some carriers bouncing around, and I'm like, what is that? And I went up there, and the station was running Foxhound mode, and I got them on the first call. I mean, it was amazing. Yeah. So, you know,
Fantastic.
poke around 10 meters, you might find some interesting things right now.
Okay.
One anecdote along that, there was a report on one of the nets the other night of contacts on 10 meters using, if you have a 991A, using the C4 FM. So if you have that radio, you can even play digital on the upper part of 10 meters.
10.
And I think it was 29,620 is where they can, you know, meters are. Up in the FM 40.
Yeah. Okay.
29,600 is the simplex
All right.
there.
If you want to start your setup, I got a little filler while you're doing that. Brad's going to do his presentation, so we're going to switch off this, go to it. Cam, what do you
So I was
got?
going to say, I finished up my photo, worked all states. So I have worked as a part in all 50 states plus the District of Columbia. That took me a little bit.
That's pretty cool.
Now,
Okay.
can you do that all in one day? Right.
Yeah.
I could if I had enough time. And that's assuming that I can get what is this now? Call sign KD9TEZ and KD1TTW out of New Hampshire. Those two took me forever to pick up. That's assuming they're on the air. The rest of them were pretty easy.
Well, Brad's finishing his setup on Field Day, June, about the third week of June, around the 20th usually. I don't have the exact dates. What we've set up, and what I'd like to do is put it out to this group. We'll do it to the Lunch at Fuzzy's group tomorrow. Let friends and family know, but if you have any interest in Field Day, I need you to send an email to fieldday@parkerradio.org. There we go. That lets us know you have an interest in it. We do not have a venue. We do not have leadership for it yet. We're trying to get some feedback on it, see what the interest is. If you would also include, if there's something you want to help with, put that in the email. You know, I want to do antenna setup. I want to do breakdown. I want to whatever. Okay. But just shoot us an email. It'll go to myself, Paul, Dan, and Randy. I think is who's on that email, just so we'll see it. And then what we'll do, we'll facilitate putting that information together, get back to those people that were interested, and then get it built up for the next meeting as well. So that's what I got. Over to you, Brad.
Excellent. All right. tonight we're going to talk about 3D printing for hams. It's going to be your new hobby. Once you get into this, you'll find out that it's a lot like ham radio. There's just so much to learn and so many cool things to be able to do with it. Plus, you can augment significantly your ham radio addiction. So, what is 3D printing? It's basically taking a digital file and using that, creating it or downloading it, and using that to make a three-dimensional object. It was originally known as rapid prototyping back in the 80s when it was invented. It involves laying down basically molten plastic on the X, Y, and Z axes in order to create a three-dimensional object. There are lots of different types of 3D. Can you turn that light down a little bit? That'd be great, yeah. There's lots of different 3D printers. Let's see here, there we go. FDM, fused deposition modeling, that's what most people talk about. That's what most of the printers you're going to see on the market are FDM. FDM has actually been copyrighted from the 80s. And so since you couldn't use FDM, they started saying, well, we're going to call it FFF. Basically, it's the same thing. Okay, these two things are pretty close. There's some differences, but they're basically the same thing. There are all kinds of 3D printing. The ones we're talking about is you're melting the plastic in layers, but you can use curable resins, you can use polymers, you can use lasers that hit the polymer and the resins. There's material jetting, laser melting, there's sintering, which is taking a powdered substance, hitting it with pressure and heat, and not liquefying it, but making it a solid. So there's all kinds of different printers. We're really only going to talk about, these are really just FDM. There are lots of filaments. You say, well, what do I print with? There are many different filaments and variations. The one that everybody starts with, the one that if you're going to start this thing, you should start with, is PLA, polylactic acid. It's the easiest to work with, and I'm going to talk about the characteristics of these as we go through, but that's usually the one that most people start with, and that's the one you learn on. The next step up the ladder is PETG. It's a glycol polyethylene. A little more difficult to work with, strings a little bit more, harder to dial that into your printer. ABS has some specific characteristics. Carbon fiber, you can print with carbon fiber, okay? There's some special unique things you have to do to print with carbon fiber because it's very abrasive on your machine. So you have to have stainless steel printer heads. You can use nylon, TPU, which is a thermoplastic polyurethane. And I know a little bit about polyurethane because there was a time in my life when we put polyurethane on top of breast implants. And it didn't work out so well, but it was all the rage there for a while. It was a fuzzy coating over the top of implants. You can take PLA and add all kinds of stuff to it. You can add metal, wood, conductive stuff, magnetic stuff, sandstone, glow in the dark. Say wood, for instance, is about a wood filament is about 20-30% wood, and the rest of it's PLA. So and it prints out and it looks like it's wood. Now it's close, it's not exactly, but it's
Was it like sawdust? Is it a sawdust form?
It's even finer than that, much finer than that. Yeah, and there are various wood filaments and some, I'm sure. I've tried one. I showed it to my wife. I said, "Hey, look, doesn't this look like wood?" And she said, "No. Not really." So, just saying, my wife is critical. PLA, polylactic acid. Its characteristics, low temperature. You wouldn't think 200 degrees centigrade is low, but that in the printing business, that's on the low end. It has less warping. It does not produce any fumes. Some of them do. But it is a little bit heat sensitive. So if you print something PLA and you set it outside in the summer and it's 100 degrees, you're going to come back to a glob, okay? So it has its uses. This is how you buy the filament. You can get pretty much any color you want, or you can get them all at once if you want. But they come in these big rolls, and I'll show you a little bit more in a minute there's some specifics about the rolls. PETG, sort of the next step up the ladder. A little more difficult to work with. I've got a couple of, we've got, I think 8 different ham-related prizes at the end that we're going to give away. Some of those are printed with PETG. Most of them are printed with PLA. And so it's a little higher temperature, so 230. Okay. It's a little more heat stable, so it's going to tolerate. It's got a little bit more tolerance of heat than outside. It's highly impact resistant, chemically stable, but it is a little bit prone to UV damage. So if you decide you're going to make an insulator and stick it outside, you may have some problems with it over time. So this is a roll of PETG. And what you notice about it, the good brand, Overture is a good brand, PETG. It talks about features here, but over here, all these, any good roll of 3D printer filament has manufacturer's recommended settings, and they print them right there on there. And this says, I can't read it, but it's like 230 to 260. And then it wants the bed temperature around 60 to 80 degrees. So it will give you what the manufacturer thinks your printer ought to be set at. So you want to start there. Other thing that you have a series of numbers here and here. This series of numbers over here is in grams. It tells you these are 1 kilo reels typically. They're about, I believe it's 1.75 millimeters. That's the diameter of the actual filament. So that's how many meters you have left, okay? And so you can look down here and see how many meters you have. This is how many grams you have left. And I'll show you when you're doing your slicing software and all that, it'll say, hey, this gadget that you're printing is going to take 200 grams of print material and 1,000 feet of print material. So it gives you an idea if you have enough on your roll to complete. You don't want to get all the way down to the end of the roll and run out before you're printing.
How many meters on a roll typically?
I don't know. It's whatever that number. It's that number right there. I can't read it.
Okay. All right.
I'm sure it's a standard number. I don't know. A lot. It's a lot of meters.
So it's more than one job.
Oh, it's many jobs. Yeah. You're going to get 20, 30 prints depending out of a given roll. TPU, really interesting stuff. I put in some of that. It's very, very, very flexible. Has good impact resistance, stable against solvents, and it's prone to deform at the extruder. People use this, model builders use this for tires. Okay, so if you're building an RC, or there's one guy who prints all his RC aircraft, 3D prints everything. So you can 3D print the aircraft, but when he gets to the tires, he uses TPU because it feels like rubber. Okay, it isn't, but it feels like it. ABS, again, it's high temperature, heat stable. It's rigid. It's soluble in acetone. I don't know why that's important, but it is. But it does produce fumes. Okay, so you want to have this in a well-ventilated area.
I think that's for bonding.
I'm sorry?
Because ABS, you can bond it, so you can build 2 parts of it.
And bond it together with the acetone, yeah. Carbon fiber, obviously very strong, lightweight. It's a little more expensive. A roll of carbon fiber is going to cost you more than a roll of PLA. But you need these hardened steel nozzles. If you run it through a standard steel or brass nozzle that they come on most of these printers, it'll just chew it up. It'll be a one-time use, and that'll be the end of it. So you have to get a hardened steel nozzle if you're going to print with carbon fiber. I haven't yet, but it's on my list. So this is one printer, okay? There's all kinds of different printers. This is AC5S, and that's what he does at night. So you have the hotbed assembly here, and right here is the print nozzle. Down here is the bed. Down in here you can see these little knobs. These are to dial in the bed leveling screws. So you screw them to sort of level the bed. We're going to talk about bed leveling. This is the heated bed. So this bed down here that you're printing on is actually heated.
You'll probably get to this, but how long did it take to do, Scott?
To do that, maybe 10 hours. If you were printing that, I'm making a guess. I'll show you one and you're going to actually see the model and then exactly how long it tells me that it's going to take to print.
Then one other question: do you have to babysit it the whole time? Or
Nope.
can you just leave it? Okay.
Nope. But you do want to be there for the first layer. okay? You want to sit there and make sure that that first layer is good, because if the first layer is not good and you leave it and come back 10 hours, you're going to have spaghetti. Okay, it's not going to work. So once you get that first layer down and everything looks good, you're probably okay. Now some people actually put a video camera on it. And you can actually even buy that for some. So you go on your cell phone and look at your print, and make sure that it's still going okay.
Well, your print time is going to depend on the fill.
It depends on the fill, it depends on the filament, it depends on your printer, it depends on the size of the print, so there's just lots of variables there. So, which 3D printer should I buy? Everybody asks the same question, and it's the same question as which ham radio should I buy? Which camera should I buy? Which girlfriend should I marry? These are all questions that have so the Creality Ender 3 series, everybody at some point who does 3D printer starts out with an Ender 3 or gets an Ender 3 at some point. It was the first one brought on the market that was broadly available. There are all kinds, if you go to the Creality website, you'll see the Ender 3 and 27 different letters and numbers after it and all the different variations and modifications. They're all basically a modification of the Ender 3. There's a new Ender 5 series that has it's a little larger, etc. Prusa was made by a hobbyist in Czechoslovakia, and I think he did it in 2009. This is an excellent printer. It's actually would be my personal second choice. Anycubic makes a printer, Flashforce makes a printer. But most people start out with something in the Ender series, the Creality Ender series.
Any interoperability issues, or is that basically at a different level? I mean,
interoperative meaning what?
Different printers, some may have softwares that work with them better than others.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. They're all going to have their own sort of infrastructure that supports them. There's some crossover, but so these are the buying caveats. If you're saying, okay, what do I need to know to buy a printer? Size does matter. You want to get at least 220 by 220 by 250 millimeter bed. Okay, that's going to allow you to print most things. That's about 8.5 by 8.5 by 9.5, 9.6 inches tall. So it's going to allow you to print most things. Now some things are too big to print, and so what people will do is they'll break it into 2 pieces, and then they'll glue those 2 pieces together. If you get smaller, all of a sudden you find that a lot of the models that you want to download or projects don't fit. Okay, so that's sort of a standard size. Auto leveling, it's a luxury item, like power windows. Okay, you can do manual, but having an auto leveling on your machine just makes your life so much easier. The biggest problem you're going to have if you do 3D printing, number 1 is leveling, and number 2 is adhesion to the bed. Those 2 problems are 95% of the problems that people have when they start 3D printing. So if you have auto leveling, it really helps. Dual Z-axis. The Z-axis is the axis that goes up and down this direction. The original Enders had just a head on one side, so it just stuck out this way and went up and down, and so it wobbled just a little bit. And but if you're supporting it from both sides, you're going to have a much more stable and much more accurate. So buy one that has dual Z-axis. High temperature extruder is nice, so you can start using some of those more exotic print filaments later as you grow into the hobby. Touchscreen is nice, but it's really, really not necessary at all. The less you pay, the more parts you're going to get. Okay. Yeah.
So that means some assembly.
Yeah, some assembly. If you buy the $100 printer on sale, expect you're going to spend 4 to 8 hours putting all the pieces together. And any one piece off, remember, we're talking about tenths of a millimeter difference when you're doing your printing between a print that works and a print that isn't working. So if you spend a little bit more money, a lot of times the one I got had a whole gantry. The gantry was all put together and it just sort of snapped in, and then put a few wires together, and that was it. Yeah, Randy?
Yeah, if you buy the MFJ 3D printer, they won't give you a bunch of parts. It's like everything else.
a few less or a few extra, one of the two. I'll show you a picture of this. A PEI, this magnetic steel plate. There's all kinds of surfaces you can print on glass. The original Enders had this sheet of, I don't know what it's, probably stainless steel, and you use little clips to sort of clip it in place. It wasn't real great. You had a lot of people had early adhesion problems. This is sort of a textured, powdered textured a surface that's magnetic, and so it just snaps down, and you can lift it off, and you flex it like this, and your print goes bing, it just flies right off. Some of the glass prints, people actually take them and put them in the freezer for a while to get it to constrict enough to be able to get the print off without breaking the print, because it adheres so much.
Or the glass.
Yeah, or the glass. Or breaks the glass. Get good springs for leveling. All of these printers involve some manual. Even the ones with the automatic involve some manual. So you sort of get manual leveling up to a point and get it as close as you can, and then the automatic sort of fine tunes that. So there are some springs underneath there, and if they're loose or they're cheap springs, you're leveling all the time, and it'll drive you nuts. I mean, you think, oh, it's all leveled. Well, last print worked. How come this print didn't? It's probably because your leveling is off. This is one of the best improvements. Everybody who gets a 3D printer takes it and sticks it either in their basement in a dark corner or in the corner of the room or whatever. Then they say, oh, I need a hood, a big hood over the top, because some of the things you print need increased heat. So you put that in there, and then you're printing, and it's like a dark hole. You can't tell what's going on, and if your layers are going down right, and you're in there with a flashlight and everything. Big old LED, I'll show you on mine where it is, and it just lights up the whole thing, and it just makes it so much nicer. This is actually the printer that I have. It's an Ender 3 S1 Pro, okay? You got the filament here, coming down into the hot end, and then right here, see this little thing right here? That's actually the auto leveler, and this thing goes down and taps on the bed, and it tells if it's level. There's a fan here. You can't see it. There's a little nipple right there. That's where the filament comes out. Down here is the bed. You've got, these are sort of the upgraded springs. They're sort of an orange color. You see the dual axes here. They go up and down and make it much more stable. A couple drawers that I never use, touchscreen, which is nice but not essential. And then this whole bar all the way across there is an LED light, and it is bright. It's really nice.
Now, one spool at a time?
I'm sorry?
Only one spool of filament at a time?
Yes, yeah. For the base printer. There are printers that will allow you to dual extrude. Dual extruder. It's much more expensive, but you can use two colors if you want to. Okay.
What's the cost of that printer?
This printer, I looked at it today, runs right at $500 on Amazon. I think they had, or actually Creality, I think had it for like $490, something like that. So next to it is the print bed, that PEI I was talking about, steel spring. You can see it's got a coating on there. It flexes like that. It's got a magnetic part that snaps down here, so you don't have to have clips holding it on the edges. And you literally lift that thing up and sort of bend it, and it'll just the print will come flying off. It's pretty nice. So you bought your printer. You got a great big old box. You bring it home. Obviously, read the manual. These things have lots of little, this washer and this wire has to go here, and again, the less you paid, the more you need to read the manual, because you're going to have a lot more work to do. Get yourself a good roll of filament, PLA. You can go over to Micro Center. What's the name of their stuff over there?
Inland.
What is it?
Inland.
Inland. That's right. You can get their Inland, which is good filament. They usually have something on sale for $18 or something like that. So you get yourself at least one roll. The printers all come with like 10 feet of stuff, which is not enough to do anything. So go buy a roll. You have to level the bed. Now, people get confused. They think, well, what happens? I have to get my level out there and make sure the bed is level. That's not what leveling is. It's really, the correct terminology is tramming. What you're doing is you are making your bed level with your printing surface. So you could be like this. As long as they're parallel, you're going to be okay. Okay, so I think if I probably put a ball bearing right on the center of my bed plate, it might roll off one side or the other because it's not level with the ground. Okay, it's parallel. It's called tramming. So you have to get that correct. Because if you're printing here and then your printer lifts up, you're going to get string. It's all going to fall apart. Your print's going to fail. So it has to be perfect all the way across the area that you're printing. Smaller prints are easier to start with because it's easier to get that area. My particular bed wasn't completely level, so I had to shim it with some tape, because my bed sort of went like this and then sort of came up a little bit, so I had to shim part of it up there with some tape, and that's, when you break your printer in, you sort of learn what it can do and what it can't do and what the problems are.
If you paid more money, they would have had that fixed.
Yeah, they would have. They would have. Manual leveling with sheet of paper, everybody shows. You can look at all the videos. What they do is they bring the printer head down and you touch it to the bed, just touch it, and then you use your dial-in knobs on the bottom to loosen it so that you can just slide a sheet of paper underneath there, so it just sort of catches. And then you have to do it for here, and for here, and for here, and for here, here, like 16 points. And you find, oh, it's level here, but it ain't level over here. So now you're leveling over here. Now it's not level over here. So it takes a while to get it all level. So what's nice about the automatic leveling is you get it close. Like I can get it in the center rock solid, but sometimes the back right is a little bit loose. And the automatic leveling will take care of that. So auto bed leveling is if you're going to add one upgrade, do that. So this is my printer. It's inside a hood. Okay, that's the reflective stuff. It's got the PEI plate. You can see the PEI plate looks dirty. That's because I put Elmer's glue on it. You say Elmer's glue, really? Some people use hairspray, but I like the Elmer's glue. This is the purple glue. You put it on, it goes on purple, and it dries. It increases the adhesion to the plate, okay, of your model. The model will still pop right off, okay? And you can clean this off with some isopropyl alcohol. But you can see there's the plate, there's the hot end. It's laying down the actual print. You can't really see it right here, but these are the leveling knobs on the front. There's two on the back there. There's that fancy light that's lighting this whole thing up. I mean, everything is just bright in there.
So you don't need a hood if you have the light, correct?
You don't need a hood if you're going to use PLA. If you say I want to use PETG, you need a hood because you have to keep that temperature high in there. You actually turn off your cooling when you're using PETG. You keep it on when you're using PLA. So, and you can go on the internet and read, oh, I'm using this filament. What do I need to know about this filament? What are the settings that I need to know for this filament? So each one is a little bit different.
Is that a hood kit or did you build a hood?
That is a hood kit with bars, and it's about as big as this podium. I kid you not, that's how big it is. And the other thing, and there's a slide I'll show later, you got to put it on a stable table. Don't put it on a card table because it's going to go, it's going to vibrate and nothing's going to work. It's got to be a stable platform that you put that thing on. So, when you're 3D printing, you start out with an idea. Now, that can either be your idea or it can be somebody else's idea. And we'll talk about where you get ideas. You start out with an idea. If it's your idea, you need to use some CAD software. And I've talked about that and the different ones to use. But you have to design your project, whatever that is. Once you do, it spits out a file, which is typically an STL file. Okay? You take that STL file, so that the printer still doesn't know what an STL file is. You have to put it into slicer software. Okay, so you put it into that slicer software. So you've got this three-dimensional model you've built. And you say, slice it into pieces so that my printer knows how to lay down the actual print. So it spits out a G-code file, which you then load into your printer, turn your printer on, get it up to temperature, which takes 2 minutes at the most, and it will print out that 3D object. So that's sort of the process that you go through. 2 sets of software, only 1 set really if you just need a slicer if you're getting it from someplace else. So where do you get ideas for printing? Probably the major place to start with is Thingiverse.com. Okay, that has lots of hams are on there. I've got a couple of models that are on there that I think have been downloaded close to 200 times now. So people will find it. You got flower vases, you got all kinds of stuff, you know, whatever you can think of. If you're into miniatures and gaming and stuff like that, My Mini Factory, you can get all kinds of Dungeon and Dragon type of miniatures and that. And then there are various other places, printables, Yagi, STL Finder, Cults.com. But honestly, you're going to find 90%. And a lot of times you go on, you go on Etsy and say, oh, that's a cool little antenna winder that somebody did. Well, you can look at that. You can usually find the STL file on Thingiverse and print it yourself. So it's frequently already there.
Is it free?
Yes. This is all free. Now Thingiverse is free. My Mini Factory, they may say, oh, you want the Princess Leia with a laser blaster, and it's going to be $1.50 or something like that for that STL file. So they do charge a nominal fee for some of those things.
And something to add on that, things that you'll find today will be gone in a month. So you might save them.
Right.
And Ham Radio Crash Course on its Discord has a channel for 3D where they post about all in.
Oh, cool. Cool. I had an STL Finder. I've got a thing that I put in Ham Radio, and it's got like 300 or 400 projects or something like that. So this is Thingiverse. Okay. This happens to be my winder that I designed, my toggle winder. You see, it's my winder there. There it is. There's a picture of it. There's various things you can collect it and save it and all the rest of that stuff. If you say, well, I just want to print it, then you scroll down and there's a thing details. You click on that and it'll pop up and it'll tell you, hey, you know, I used this printer with these settings and this temperature, and I used supports or I didn't use supports, etc. So it'll tell you what you need. And right here, download, there's the STL file. Okay? So you just download that STL file. Now you don't have to design it. It's already been designed. Somebody's already done the work for you. So you can download that and take it into your slicer. And then it has, everybody puts a picture of it, and there it is, you know, with the wire and everything else like that. So again, and it's free. Okay? You're not getting charged at Thingiverse for these things. If you're going to design your own stuff, you need CAD software. Okay? Everybody starts with Tinkercad. It's an online, I think it's tinkercad.com. It's object-based. In other words, they say, okay, you want to build a box, here's a cube, and here's a cube that's a hole, and you can design it and make it and that. And I won't go into a lot of detail there. Sort of the gold standard is Fusion 360. Very expensive piece of software if you're a commercial entity, if you're building this commercially. If you're using it as a non-commercial hobbyist, it is free. So this is complicated software with a big learning curve. There is a guy on YouTube that I learned it from, Paul McWhorter. Some of you guys may have heard of him. He has two series, an older one and a newer one of like 13 or 15. And he goes through step by step of learning how to use this and how to create sketches, etc. And you'll see what I'm talking about. There's a couple others. I don't really have any experience with them. Blender, FreeCAD. I'm sure Prusa has its own CAD software. This is Tinkercad. This was actually a model that somebody else built for a CW case. And I had a card that was sticking out, and so I needed to, this was just a little tiny little hole, and I needed this whole thing opened up here. So I brought it into Tinkercad and took this whole thing and I put it right over there, and I made a bigger hole so that I could fit my case. And then you just go over up there somewhere as export. Import, export, you export it back out. It always gives you a goofy name. You know, everything you bring in, it gives you this goofy name. But you can learn how to use these objects to create three-dimensional things. And the first thing that I ever did, and I'll show you in a minute, I used Tinkercad to build it with. This is Fusion 360. See, it's personal, not for commercial use. You take a three-dimensional object and you push it down to 2 dimensions. So you have to diagram this winder in 2 dimensions in your X and Y axes. So you design it and you lock it in and you create a sketch. These are sketches underneath here, and you have to lock them all down, and all these points are locked, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Once you get it designed and you say, I'm happy with that, then you extrude it. And in other words, you add depth to it, you add the z-axis to it. You can extrude it and make it as thick as you want to. I could have made this thing that thick or whatever, and I think I ended up with 5 millimeters, what I decided. It allows you to save up to 10 projects for free, the various other things that I've been working on. And then you export that, it's an STL file, okay? Then if you want to, you can upload it to Thingiverse, which is one of the things that I did, and other people can use it, so. Next is slicing software. So to get the STL file to the G-code file, most people start out with Ultimaker Cura. It's free, it's pretty simple to use, it's not hard, it automates a lot of stuff. You put a few settings in there and that's it. There's Prusa Slicer, there's MakerBot Print, but most people start here. Creality has its own version, Creality Cura. It's exactly the same thing, it's just rebranded with the Creality name. But most people use this one because it's easiest and it seems to be the standard of what most people do. So this is Ultimaker Cura, okay? There's my printer. I've got generic PLA, that's my nozzle size. These are the settings. I've got standard settings. Don't do that. I keep hitting it with my elbow. Standard quality, you can go different quality. This talks about the infill, how dense the infill inlay is going to be. The more infill, if you did 100%, it's going to be rock solid, but it's going to be very stiff and it could snap, so it doesn't have any give to it. It's going to take a lot longer to print. And there's some other settings about support and adhesion. What I did here is I said, I want to make this 150% of what the model that I downloaded from Thingiverse was. So I put it 150 and it scales it up. And it tells me that my model down here is going to be 140 by 53 by 171 millimeters. So it tells me how big it's going to be. So once you get all that stuff, you hit the slice button. The slice button only does this, and it slices it. And it says it's going to take, in answer to your question earlier, it's going to take 10 hours and 30 minutes to print this thing. It's going to take 73 grams of material and 24.46 meters of filament to print it. And so you then save this. It's a G-code file. You save it to disk, okay? Then you literally take that, put it into your printer, and start printing.
Is there optimizer software that would indicate to the user orientation for printing? Like, would it be better if you did it horizontal or vertical?
It's something that you learn, okay?
So
Okay. For instance, now the thing that people don't understand when they're first printing is you can't print in the air. Okay, you know, in other words, if you have a house and you have overhangs, okay, and it hangs over, you can't print those overhangs. It's going to fall apart, okay? So you have to create supports underneath it. The program will say, hey, you need supports for this. And when you put it into the slicer program, it'll show these big red areas going, I don't think this is going to work. You can try it, but I don't think it's going to work for you. So this particular model, you print it on its end. If you laid this model down flat and tried to print it, it would fail. Because you're printing it, the only thing you've got resting on are those two pieces. You can't build a whole model from that. So yes, this is the quick and dirty version of this whole thing. So anyways, you print it, you get it all printed. You can see, see the sort of the glue adhesive there. I don't clean that off very often because it works. And you end up with a three-dimensional print. So making it all work, level. That's critical. If it isn't level, it ain't going to work. You've lost the game before you started the race. Build plate adhesion. I like that PEI magnetic plate plus minus glue. Start out with PLA. Use the standard settings. Don't go crazy. You can advance those as you learn how to. Enable cooling. The default cooling if you use the PLA. Use the manufacturer's parameters. They'll tell you right on the label, here's what unless you buy the cheap Chinese stuff, in which case you're on your own. Default print speed. So just basically getting it to work. So everybody prints this. This is a Benchy. We call it a 3D Benchy. And it's a benchmark, basically. And if this comes out looking nice and pretty just like this, you've done everything right. you've got it leveled, you've got it, the temperature is correct, all the settings are correct, it's going to be good, and everybody prints out these cubes here. Usually, this is what your first print looks like. You get stringing, you're not level, you know, you're not laying down uniform layers, and this is actually pretty good for a first effort. Or you get this. The guy said, having fun with my 3D printer. Yeah,
That's
right.
why people have cameras on their bed.
That's right. Yes, yes. And
They never
so
print.
well, yeah, you come back 3 hours and you just this big glob of spin. And anybody who's done this stuff has learned it. So there's all kinds of problems here. The problem is with your settings, etc. So, you know, what went wrong? Again, poor leveling. If you're not level, you're going to lose. Unstable base, you got it on a cheap card table, it's not going to work. Poor build plate adhesion. Now that I've gotten that PEI, I don't really have that problem anymore. Wrong settings. You know, your temperature's too high, your temperature's too low. There's a drop-down menu where I showed the basic default settings. There's about 100 settings in there that you can adjust. There's probably 5 that you really need to adjust. You really need to adjust the temperature, the bed temperature, stuff, etc. There's a lot of settings like wall thickness and how many layers to the base layer and all that. You probably don't need to worry about that too much. And bad modeling. You can download a thing from Thingiverse and it's just a piece of crap. Okay? And you print it and you go, why did this fail? You know, all my settings are right and everything else. It's because the guy who designed it didn't design it correctly. So that happens too. It will take a while to dial in your printer, okay? It just will. You're not going to turn this on. This is not, as I said, think Heathkit, not toaster. It's not a turn it on and it all works just perfectly, okay? It takes a while to dial it in. I would recommend, I've got a little notebook next to my printer. And so, I'm using PETG, I'm using this brand. Here's the temperature I set it at, here's the bed temperature, here are the various settings. And then, you know, if it works, I'm going to come back to that. If it didn't work, I can figure out, okay, what do I want to change here? So that'll help dial it in because you may be 3 months later that you're doing that same filament again and you've forgotten the settings. You have to reinvent the wheel. It's more of an art than a science. Okay, there's a lot of science too. Yes, Randy?
Hey, it helps to have a 3D printing helper that you can call on the phone and say, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah, it does. It does. It does help, but it doesn't always solve the problems. So. What can you print? Ham radio stuff, because I said this is about ham radio. You can print cases for your project. I've done several of those. I've stands for radios. I've done some of those. There's every winder under the sun. We're giving away 2 winders and a couple other things. Clamps, drawers, boxes. I have these really cool micro SD card holders. There's 2 of those we're giving away. Toys for your grandkids. I've been doing a lot of that. And everybody has to print at least 1 Yoda. This is one of my this was my very first thing that I did. I designed it with Tinkercad. It's a stand for the TR-35 CW radio. And it's not perfect. I really shouldn't have that edge up there and I shouldn't have that edge down there. But it's pretty close and it works. And I was pretty happy with it. And I think I've had 80 or 90 downloads. People that have downloaded and printed that. And if you look at this in answer to how do you orient this thing, if you printed it like it came out, and you'll go from Thingiverse, and it'll put it on your slicer like this, you go, oh, okay. You print that, this whole thing is going to collapse because you're printing in thin air. But if you turn it on its side this way, then you can print the whole thing without supports. You don't need a support. And if they're nice, the people will tell you you need supports or you don't need supports in the details on it.
Does the slicer software make recommendations for supports?
No, it doesn't make recommendations, but it will show you, if I put that up there in that orientation, the underside would be bright red, saying, which is basically the thing saying, I think this isn't going to work, but you're on your own. So, cool little table and or a set of drawers for small parts. This is that micro SD card. We have a couple of those over there. You take the adapter is the lid, and you drop the little micro SDs in there, so you can keep 8 micro SDs in there and never lose those things again. So what are my choices? What did I buy? What am I using? I'm using the Creality Ender 3 Pro, S1 Pro, because it has all those upgrades. You can buy the straight Ender 3, and you can add all those upgrades. It's gonna cost you more than if you just buy them all on the front end, but you can add them piece by piece, and a lot of people do. A lot of hobbyists started with a plain basic Ender 3, and they've added piece by piece by piece. Start out with the PLA, get a thing or two off of Thingiverse, use the Ultimaker Cura. If you want to start designing your own stuff, Tinkercad and Fusion 360, again, Paul McWhorter on YouTube has some really great YouTubes that will sort of walk you step by step so you can sort of learn that software. And then you can print Yoda. So, that's the end. I will tell you that we have some, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think we have 8 different prizes, okay? And I'm gonna go with the, under your chair, there may be a label. And if you find that little label, you gotta lift the chair up and look, and it'll have a number on it, 1 through 8. It's a little white piece of paper. He's got one back in the corner. And those are the winning numbers. Yeah, Randy, there is one on that chair.
Is it this one right here?
Yeah, that's it. You can give that to somebody.
I'll give it to somebody.
And so, you know, you guys can choose however you want.
Who did not get one?
If you don't have a 3D printer and you want something 3D printed, the Arapahoe County Library will print it for free. You just have to send, what's that?
Smoky Hill Library.
Yeah.
Here to fill off your chair.
Printer at home. And they will print it out for free. You don't get to choose the color, they just print it for you. Who
didn't get one?
If they're printed in pink that day, that's the color you're getting.
Who got number 1? Pick
But
whatever you want. Who got number 2?
There you go.
Pick. Come pick so we can get on with the rest of the meeting. You can have whatever you want. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And if you didn't, yeah.
Do you have any interface?
This one of them?
Windows 10 or an Apple?
Yeah.
No.
So the computer's built into the printer?
Yeah.
This on the software. If you're the slicer software has to be in on the laptop. So yeah, you need a computer for the STL files if you're doing CAD software, or for the slicing software. Yeah, you take a card once you have the STL file, and then you go to and you get the G-code file. You plug that right into the printer, and the printer, I think it probably has a Linux-based computer in it, and it generates it. It codes it, it decodes it all, and it prints it.
There's also a way to control it via Raspberry Pi via Octoprint. So you install Octoprint on, say, like a Raspberry Pi, and then you can connect the Raspberry Pi to the printer.
Hey Brad, can you talk about cost for just a minute?
Sure.
There's just the cost of the things that you showed up there?
Yeah, so the S1 printer, as I said, was about $500. You can get into this. You could get in.